Welcome to the Firearms Nation podcast. And this is a very special live session of the show. And I got a great guest tonight. I look forward to it. But if you're missing the live session, you can always check it out, the video replay up on the YouTube channel, the Firearms Nation YouTube channel. And then, of course, this will be a audio podcast. I'm going to tweak, obviously, the audio, and you can listen to it on whatever podcatcher you use, right? I'm using these terms, podcatcher, like people know what that means. Whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. And of course, it's the Firearms Nation podcast. So tonight I am honored to have what I call a great thinker in the shooting sports, in the shooting community. So a lot of stuff is the same in shooting. I've been teaching shooting at my agency, privately. I've been competing in shooting. I've taken classes, and it's rare that you find a new technique in shooting. Most of it's the same stuff that's been around forever. People have a different twist on it. But every so often, there's someone that comes along who has really thought about this stuff and is able to break down the minutia and come up with different ways of actually achieving the end result that we want. And that, of course, is shooting fast and shooting accurate. So my guest tonight has been on the podcast several times. And the first time he was on, I was impressed by how much detail he goes into just to come up with drills, to come up with techniques, studying different sports. And of course, you can listen to those shows. They're in the catalog on the audio level. You can hear all the podcasts that I did with my guest. But he's also, since that time, achieved much higher status in the shooting sports. He was on the World Shoot team in 2022, went to the World Shoot and competed there and did very well. And he's now a founding member of the Practical Shooting Training Group with Ben Stoger and Joel Park, both who've been on the show before. And they're pushing the limits in the stuff that they're doing. So, of course, my guest tonight has the nickname The Professor because he is the professor in the shooting sports. So, yes, it's Hwansik Kim, and I'm very happy to have him. Hwansik.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, you're not coming back, but that's all right. There you are. Hey, Hwansik, how you doing?
How's it going?
Good. Very happy to have you on. And thank you for coming on once again.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be here.
I scratched the surface on some of what you have accomplished, but you were originally we're going way back. We're going the way back machine right now. You've been doing shooting. You started in the military in Korea, correct?
That's correct. For the rifles, yes. I haven't had a pistol back then. So pistol, when I came to the US, that was my first time shooting a pistol.
And from that first time to where you are now, you've kind of devoted yourself to the shooting sports. This is pretty much what you do now, correct?
Yes, this is my full-time stuff. My full-time job is teaching, training people, shooting, instructing. Yeah.
And I think the last time we talked, you were still kind of doing both. What was the thing that got you to be able to go full-time, do you think?
So back then I was doing engineering in school. I had about a year left in school to finish the degree. And that's right around the time I got a sponsorship, couple here and there, Walther and bullet sponsors, things like that. So I had an opportunity to go into more shooting, full-time shooting route. At the time, it wasn't like instruction part. It's more of a pro shooter type of a thing. I was getting burned out doing both school and being a sponsor shooter. So my wife actually recommended me, hey, you need to choose one. You're getting burned out. You can only manage one. Because I was trying to do a high level on both sector. So I didn't have enough hours to do, and eventually, less sleep. So that was like the decision start. And then of course there was many things that I went through. Like I'm a Christian, so I was going through a lot of prayers, and then like a lot of ideas came up during the time. And one of the idea was current training group. We call it training group. The full name is Practical Shooting Training Group. So I started developing the idea, and then approached Ben because Ben and I were friends, uh, and Ben and I are friends. So we became friends 2016, and end of 2017, I started developing the idea. 2018, I told Ben, hey, there's this idea, uh, and he had online coaching idea too as well, somewhat similar. So we were like, hey, let's team up and combine ideas and launch it.
And
So that
you,
was a gateway to
that was
full-time
the gateway.
shooting. Yes.
Okay. Uh, that's tough. I mean, that's got to be a big step to, I mean, engineering, you're going to get a job, that you're going to be able to support your family. Uh, Shooting can come and go. you know, if you're
Yeah.
not, I remember years ago, God, I can't, it's got to be almost 10 years ago. I took a class with Jerry Barnhart, and God bless him. What an amazing guy. But he kind of reminds me a little bit, a lot of the analysis that he does, you kind of have that same flavor. And
Mhm.
I remember I was watching him clean his gun, and he was cleaning that barrel. I've never seen anybody clean a barrel so much. And he just said, this is my bread and butter. If
Mhm.
if I don't produce, if I don't win, if I don't teach, then I can't support my family. So I got to give it everything I've got. And I was like, that really took me back, because like that's
Mhm.
intense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you mentioned that and also I should say that before we got into this conversation, we were talking about cigars. Just I always like to add a little flavor to the beginning of these shows, and talk about esoteric things. But cigar wise, what are you smoking these days?
These days, I've been smoking a lot of Camacho brand.
Mm,
That is something that I've smoked many different brands, and I have favorite brands and whatnot. But I always try to do at least like 30% or 20% of what I smoke as to be new ones. And recently, I'm smoking through all the blends of Camacho, and I'm finding a couple good, really good ones that I really like. Uh, Camacho Nicaragua definitely is one of them.
which one is the Camacho Nicaragua?
That's the if you they have different color labels,
Okay,
and this is like the brownish label
okay.
or
Tomorrow,
orange brownish. Yeah.
tomorrow I'm going to the cigar store. I usually do it on Fridays, because I'm like you. I like to. I have my staple stuff that I always like to smoke, but I like to try new things. And so I haven't done a lot of Camacho. I'm going to pick that one up. I'm going to send
Mhm.
you a picture of me smoking it tomorrow. Um,
Yes.
Thank you for that recommendation.
Mhm.
Uh, so getting back to the shooting before we lose people, you said that you started with rifle and then you went to pistol, but recently you started shooting rifle again. Is that correct?
Both, yes, both.
So what was that like, going back to rifle?
But one thing is the system is a little bit different compared to my duty rifle back then. Was iron sight gun, and it's made by Daewoo. So it's kind of like it takes AR mags, but the system is almost close to AK. But now I'm shooting more AR variants. During pandemic is when I started picking it back up, and because during pandemic a lot of the classes canceled, a lot of matches canceled, a lot of things canceled. So I wanted to maybe use extra time for something productive. That really helped me to shoot a lot of basically better understanding of modern style guns in rifle and modern style shooting technique. I was fortunate to talk with Maxwell Grandes. Maxwell Grandes is a fantastic rifle shooter and PCC shooter. He and I are friends, so I got to talk to him about the modern techniques of rifles and really experience. And I got to shoot a couple competitions. I shot two gun nationals one time. And I shot one PCC alone nationals. That was actually my first match ever, shooting a rifle at a competition. And I was surprised. I came 13th at nationals, but that was my first match. I hadn't shot a local match or anything, so I was unclassified. So that was a little funny story. And then I shot nationals, two gun nationals the year after, and I finished sixth on that. So I find rifle shooting typically it takes 10 times less effort and ammunition compared to mastering pistol. So that was actually a good thing for me because I wasn't gonna spend that much time and effort and ammunition to it to learn it. But rifle compared to pistol is so much quicker development if you are having a pistol background.
That's 100% correct. Years ago, again going on the Wayback Machine, uh,
Mhm.
I was with Frank Garcia down in his range here in Florida, and he had Manny Bragg, who was used to work for him, uh, go into they had like the special forces class there, and Manny never shot a rifle before,
Mhm.
and he gave him a rifle, and he put him up against these guys, and they were just blown away but how proficient he was with that rifle. And Frank said, and I give him credit, he's like, mastering the handgun is really hard, and if you can
Yes.
master the handgun, rifle will be a piece of cake.
Yes. It'll be very quick.
And so that was your uh, experience as well, going back to the rifle, the modern. So when you say modern technique, are you talking like, not like the marksmanship style? What's the modern technique in rifle?
Definitely one of the first thing is the stance and how you mount your rifle. When I was in the army, mounting wasn't as important. So to say, hey, as long as the rifle is steady, uh, it's okay. So people, how they used to shoot, I don't know about right now. It was more Weaver stance. So even though the target is in front of you, you blade out your stance to be facing almost sideways and have left shoulder all the way forward, not really aligned, like no alignment to the target with the body. But now modern style shooting is your body is more aligned towards the target, shoulder more facing the target, not unbalanced twist in your body, more of comfortable, more relaxed stance, I should say. That's one thing, and the mounting system also. Back then, a lot of people didn't really talk about push pull kind of thing, pulled into your shoulder socket or your pectoral, whatever. Everybody's different on the positioning on the butt stock, but fundamentally nowadays people push and pull. So they pull in with the arm with using the hand guard and have a firm contact on the butt stock.
And as far as trigger and stuff like that, did it's easier to mash the trigger when you're shooting the rifle because you got more points of contact on the gun. Uh,
Mhm.
did you find that your trigger technique from the pistol was translating over to what you were doing with the rifle?
Absolutely. In terms of shooting one shot only, I would say I was probably I would have done the same accuracy if it's one shot only if I when I was in the army, because in the army the trigger technique and sight alignment was the main focus. But follow-up shots are problematic where mounting to your body is not really good. The rifle's moving around the shoulder or pectoral area. So if we are talking about multiple shots, it's completely different story now. But when I was in the army, I would say my one shot was good, but rest of the follow-up shots weren't.
You did both PCC and regular rifle. Which
Yes.
did you like better?
I don't really look at it like I like this better or not like better. The feel is different, but still, rifle is rifle. Pistol carbine is still a carbine. AR-15s I have, most of them are still the carbine. The feel is different, and also like it's louder and it kicks my face. But when I'm vision focusing, they don't matter. They don't really kick or register to my brain. The how the gun behaves during recoil is for sure different because the rounds are different and things like that. But again, when I'm having a vision focus, I don't care about how the pattern is on the sight. As long as I am doing my job, looking at the spot, putting urgency, say, hey, follow my vision. That's exact spot, follow my vision. It doesn't matter what pattern you see on the recoil. As long as the gun follows exactly what my vision tells them.
So you brought up some phrases of vision focus, and we're going to get into that because I have
Yeah.
a whole section here on vision focus. Uh,
Mhm.
are you going to continue with the two gun and the PCC, or is that just it was a side project that you were just playing around with?
The practice ratio wise, it hasn't really changed much except last year because the war shoot, handgun war shoot. So last year I didn't really practice with the rifle much, but now I'm back on regular practice ratio, which is basically about 90% handgun and 10% rifle.
Okay, and both live and dry fire, correct?
Yes. In terms of competition, though, I might shoot a little bit of PCSL at the end of the year because
Okay,
the Handgun Nationals is in April and June. So by second half of the year, most of my big handgun stuff is done. But most of my teaching also, most of my classes focus more on the handgun, and some private classes and some dedicated group classes will have rifles. So I don't neglect rifle training because there's teaching I have to do sometimes with the rifles. So that's general routine for me.
and then you also, I recently heard you discuss that you went to an Eric Grauffel class. I think it was here in Florida, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
How was that?
It was a very good experience for me, for sure, because it doesn't only help me as an instructor, it also helps my shooting and also helps my training. That's the main thing that I decided to go take his class, especially for my own training. Because if you don't take a class or if you don't study enough, your own training will deteriorate, and I don't want that to happen. And I want to. My addiction for shooting is yes, shooting part, boom, boom, bang, bang is fun, but I actually am more addicted to learning and studying. That's what I spend more time. Because when I first started shooting, first competition was 2014. Now it's about 10 years ago. I looked into other shooters, top shooters, national champions, world champions, and a lot of them started at age of 8 and 10 and whatnot, very young age. And at the time, I was 26, and I was calculating numbers. That's usually what I do, calculate things a lot. When I calculate the number, first, I don't have money to outrun their ammo spent. I cannot afford millions of rounds and get to their level by shooting that many rounds. Another thing is hours. I didn't have enough hours to outrun by dry firing either. I simply don't have enough hours, no resource. So what I decided is I'm gonna outrun them by studying more. So that was my focus and still is now my focus.
Okay, so break that down. What do you mean by studying more?
Yes, of course, you can shoot million rounds. And when I was studying engineering, by the way, there's multiple different ways to learn things. Trial and error is definitely a big common way to learn. And trial and error requires resources and time. And I do not have that when I started. I did not have that. However, if you actually study what the study's been done and what others learned from their trial and error, I can learn that. And another thing is I can by studying and learning, I can create my own experiments and perhaps come up with something better. So study is very efficient way to improve your own whatever you do, business, shooting, whatever it is. Study is a good pathway to shortcut your way up.
And when you say study, are you watching films? Are you on films, videos on YouTube? Are you reading books? Are you going to classes or all the above?
All the above, of course. I studied engineering, so I had particular way of studying too. Of course, the common way of studying, like watching films, actually taking a class, go competition, and try to squad with them and watch them shoot, could be like common things. Another things I did is like using Excel sheets to like analyze their scores and times and splits, all that kind of stuff. And then I pushed myself to get to their level and see what fails and what success, and also what I need to improve on. So that was actually very helpful for me to develop as a pro shooter at the time. And I don't say I'm a pro shooter anymore. I say my full-time job is teaching. So 2018 is when I started, teaching and doing training group. During that time, I shifted my focus from shooting competition itself, because shooting competition and developing shooting and teaching shooting, they're all different things. So I was focusing more in different routes to teach better and also actually be a better shooter and understand what actually it takes to be able to teach somebody and get them at a higher level as quick as possible. I'm not interested in giving them a entertainment, I say usually. It's an entertainment plus training. They don't really work well. They may understand some concepts, but they don't experience the right thing and they don't attain what the teaching was actually about. And when I first started, because my background at the time was studying more what's visible, like so to say, I watch video and in the video, I can see this guy grip this way, run this way, do these things. But at the time, I didn't have any much of an understanding of what actually goes through the brain and what they actually see, because you cannot see what actually they see. Even though you can see first person video camera, you will not actually see what their eyes are actually doing in terms of like how the focal depth is changing and how like urgent they are in their brain, what desires they have, what they're focusing. And as I am teaching more and improving my shooting more, I started understanding what actually matters to be quick, better, quick, and also learn quick. And understanding base versus experience base. When I started, I was more understanding based. So I wanted to explain things I know. And I quickly realized people without background information doesn't understand very well. Now I cannot separate my time to explain for them in a class setting, like group class setting. So I started understanding, oh, okay, it has to be experience based. So it's not just understanding. Even if you understand, you may not actually know how to do it. You may have the knowledge, but you may not be able to actually do it, if that makes sense. In that case, I quickly said, yeah, I gotta come up with something else. I gotta do something else to be able to help people to shoot quickly, but be very good shooter, very, very good shooter. So I started understanding, hey, it has to be experience based. Even though they may not have an understanding, if they know how to drive a car, that's an experience base. If I tell somebody, hey, you're supposed to go to 15 miles per hour and shift it to second gear, and then at certain RPM, you do these things, and you press the brake pedal at a 15 pounds force, if I tell them, they may understand the numbers. But if they're on the car, can they do it? No, they cannot. If somebody knows how to drive, basically, if they know how to use the vision and have the body follow, if they're on the car, if I tell them, hey, 15 degrees to the right, it's not how we should explain. How we explain is, hey, this is a car, this is a circuit, and you got to turn on that corner. So make sure you want to see the end of the corner so you know your body knows how to do it. And they get on the car, they look at the end of the corner, they may do somewhere around 15 degrees and they quickly realize, oh, my car is not going deep enough. More, now less. Their body adjusts itself if your vision is doing the right thing. Any sport is the same way. Vision is the most important thing. And a lot of people actually have their innate ability to do certain things. For example, this is an analogy I always tell people. Hey, if I give you a direction, hey, look at that pole. I want you to go there. And they start walking. And I tell them, hey, faster. And I start yelling, faster, faster. I'm basically putting them in urgent mode. I'm giving them pressure and urgency. What do? Some people would run faster. Some people will full sprint like Usain Bolt. Some people will walk faster. Whatever they do, they put the urgency in themselves and speed things up. I don't have to teach you how to speed up. We already know how to speed up. Of course, if you actually learned sprinting, you will sprint. If you never learn sprinting, you probably won't sprint, but you're going to hurry them up. And body eventually figures itself out to how to make it more urgent. And in shooting, it's not really important a lot of the times to have a perfect mechanics. Even if you have subpar mechanics, if your vision is doing the right thing, you're able to use whatever ability you have. For example, some people say, hey, Nate Diaz is not that technically sound. He kind of punches weird and he does weird stands. But does he win? Yes, he wins. The reason why is technique is maybe about only 20% of what you're going to have on the score. 80% is it comes from what the vision is doing, how the brain is processing, and how the body is following. So my teaching curriculum now completely changed compared to a couple of years ago and more years back.
So you went through Eric's class, and you're an instructor now, and you've been doing this for a long time. What do you think Eric is doing that makes him probably the best shooter in the world?
First of all, he has a very good understanding of how competition works, and he's very good at mathematics. And I heard he studied, I forgot if it was engineering or physics, something science related. So he has that analytic mind. During the class, it wasn't much about development of your shooting. It was more on how you use to create the score we need. So that was very interesting. And also, one thing I learned that I'm applying to my own training is he puts much more pressure, so to say. Most of his practice, or he says at least, is not about developing or not about experimenting. It's always about score base and only one run. So he puts a lot of pressure. It's just like a competition. Basically, he's bringing that competition where you can only shoot one run, and you have to at least create certain score to be in the top. You don't have to try to win on that one stage, but to win the whole match, if that makes sense. So that kind of concept really helped me out. But a lot of my teaching is actually more related to better development, and all about what matters the most and what rewards you the most. My training, I have two classes I teach. The first one is Vision Focus Fundamentals, and second one is Advanced class. For Advanced Mastery class, it's more into pressure and developing under pressure and operating under pressure. The Vision Focus Fundamentals one is basically how we can be the better shooter as quick as possible. So my training isn't necessarily like a USPSA specific competition style. It's more shooting based.
So let's get into vision focus, because that's probably one of the techniques that is not really out there. So what caught my eye when I first heard it is that you were basically telling people to control recoil through vision. And that's very counterintuitive to what most people are taught. Most people are taught, I'm not just saying USPSA, I'm talking about in general when they get the gun, to control the recoil, the majority of people are going to want to grip harder to control it. And they'll see bigger guys being able to keep the gun pretty flat, and they want to do that, so they're gripping hard. And for a while, it was taught when I first started shooting, it was like a 60-40 grip or a 30-70 grip. The majority of the grip coming from your support hand because you didn't want to get trigger freeze. And then it became like, it was like 100%. You're just clamping down hard on that gun. So it's gone through the whole gamut on grip, but and vision was never a focus. I hate to say that. That's kind of a pun, but okay. Vision was never a primary thing. When they say it's grip, sights, and trigger, the most important being trigger, vision was never even in there, because they say, well, if you had a good grip, you could smash the trigger and you'd still be okay. But now, recently, I say in the past couple of years, you've been pushing this vision focus, and there's a play on words there, the way it's spelled, but yeah. The vision focus, you're controlling the recoil. So where did this come about? How did this come about? And also, what is it?
Yes. So in terms of development, this vision focus information is not much out there on public. It's only available pretty much on PSTG, and even PSTG. Once I teach and I verify it works very good during my teaching, then it goes to PSTG, the Practical Shooting Training Group, in short, PSTG. And PSTG is membership based. If you don't have a membership, there's no access. So there's like one video I posted on my YouTube that really glimpsely talk about vision focus a little bit. So a lot of people actually ask me, hey, let me take a class with you, or like a private class with you. Uh, and sometimes they mention, hey, I watched your video, so I think I know what you're talking about vision focus. And everybody comes to my class. I'm like, oh, wow, I had no idea this was actually vision focus. So again, this is an experience based. Unless you experience, you don't really grasp the 100% of what vision focus is about. Now, in terms of recoil management, before we go into vision focus realm, one thing people need to understand is, first of all, what makes our shot based on, let's say, hey, I'm trying to shoot only 1 inch circle. I'm going to try to put that bullet in that 1 inch groove every single shot. If you do that, first of all, let's say you grip as hard as possible, squeeze all the muscle, every single muscle, try to lock every joint so that the gun does not flip up in recoil. Let's say that. So let's say you were successful a little bit and the gun does move. But is it truly never ever moving? Yes, it's going to move a little bit. Either it could be moving slightly up, it could be moving slightly like in a jagged left and right, up and down, like crazy manner that typically happens when you lock up everything. But now think about that keyword. You're trying to lock up things. When we move the guns, we move our arms, whether if it's up and down and left and right. If you lock up your body, by definition, lock up means not letting it move. Yes. If you don't let it move, and sometimes, yes, if you really need to move because the sight is not on the same spot or the right spot, you have to force yourself to move. In that case, things slow down by a lot. But if you imagine, if you make sure, at least your arms, basically arms, yeah, you have to have a relaxed shoulder. The reason why is this. If you have a trigger freeze, it means your hand is tense. But hand is tense, but your finger didn't move. That's how it works. Finger is connected to the joint inside your hand. If you tense up too much on the hand, the finger doesn't move. You tense up too much on the shoulder and it locks up your arm. Now arms don't move. When you try to move the gun, you definitely don't want to curl around your wrist. You don't want to change the sight system or position of the gun by curling the wrist, because it fundamentally changes the whole front sight relationship, front sight, rear sight alignment. So that's why we don't want to steer the gun with the wrist curling around. We want to steer the gun by the straight arm moving up and down, things like that. So if you lock up your shoulder by tensing up too much, shrugging up high is common case. It could be just simply squeezing hard. Then arms don't move. What matters here is the fact that the sight go up in recoil and comes back as fast as possible. But imagine if it was, even if it was a smaller amount of flip, if you are locked up, you're not able to move your arm quick. What really matters for to have the follow-up shots in the same hole, again, is to bring that sight to that exact spot as fast as possible. But if you're locked up, you cannot do that. So that's one thing we need to understand. It's not about locking up. It's not about making the gun move less. It's really about moving our body fast. So that's big key, one of the keys. Now let's go into vision focus related though. But I need to explain what I mean by vision focus. There's at least 3 components. The first one is acquisition speed. So acquisition speed means if you're shooting, for example, target transition, look at the target number 1 to target number 2 quick. If you have to move to another position, after you engage, you find that next area fast. If it's just one-shot engagement, yeah, looking at the target, acquisition speed is not really tested. Now, number 2 is vision guidance, visual guidance. For number 2, What visual guidance means is simply you have desired area and move your body part there. In our shooting, it's just basically moving the sight. If you look at a blurred target, meaning your focal depth is zoomed down into the whole target, then it'll stop somewhere in that brown area. If you pinpoint a specific spot inside the target, like completely ignoring the fact that brown is your target, but you actually try to pick a spot, like a pinpoint, and try to zoom into that spot and try to guide your body to that specific spot. Your hand-eye coordination ability goes up, the gun follows better, sight follows with better precision. Not necessarily slow. It shouldn't be slow. The speed is irrelevant. It's the fact that you pinpoint to a specific spot, zooming in, focal depth change happens over here, and then trying to move the body part or the sight, red dot, whatever, to that specific spot. So you're visually guiding to a pinpoint spot. This requires focal depth change. And focal depth change has to happen as fast as possible. Also, acquisition speed. So if you have to turn your eyeballs, you got to move it as fast as possible to the next target or next spot. Acquisition speed, acquisition is too far away, like all the way left, all the way right. Now you have to spin your head, turn your neck to get your head to the next one. Then you got to snap that head as fast as possible. So number one and number two, a lot of people actually understand better because Ben also teaches the vision related thing a lot, and he actually posts a lot of stuff on his YouTube. So a lot of people kind of understand, oh, you're supposed to snap your vision to the next spot and find a small spot. Now the third one is a lot of people what miss. It's urgency. I kind of described a little bit. Urgency is basically like a desire. It's not about verbal, like it's not verbal conversation to tell, oh, literally saying to yourself, I want to get there now. No. You look at a spot and you have a desire to get there faster. So meaning in a shooting situation, if it's a build drill, for example, shooting 6 shots, multiple shots, then you pinpoint the spot and keep focusing on the spot to visually guide and tell yourself, hey, I want the red touch there now. Follow my vision. Follow where I look at now, immediately, now. If it's a moving per se, once you engage the target, you look at where you have to go, find the spot where you have to go, and telling yourself, get there now. It's almost like if you ever race, even not racing, I mean, most people probably drive. When you're driving, let's say this is a different car, and this is a pretty slow car. And imagine you have a time limit. Hey, I got to get there in 10 seconds. When you look at the goal line, do you just look at, okay, I just got to keep driving? No, we don't think like that. Hey, get there now, faster. I want to see the car just speed up to that goal. So what the body does is slam into that accelerator. If it's a desire, urgency is to stop exactly that spot on the goal line, then what do? First, we don't want to go 10 miles per hour all the way because we got to get there fast. So all the way acceleration, and then as you get closer, you smoothly get into the brake pedal, get ready to brake all the way. And then as you brake, if you brake too much, it's going to spin, right? So you got to know, hey, slower this pace, a little faster, slower, a little faster brake. So this is a whole urgency, how we control the body to have more urgency, the more aggression and everything. So in recoil management, those three are the most important. To be able to precisely guide to a pinpointed spot and have urgency to have that sighting system to that spot. Follow my vision now. So in that case, even if your mechanic was not as ideal, one of the demonstration in the video I talked about on YouTube, I actually shoot T-cupped. So my right hand is completely halfway down the grip, and my left hand is just touching the bottom of the gun. Very bad recoil mechanics. The gun flips, of course, much higher than my typical shooting. But if I have that vision focus properly done, it follows my vision so quick, I can still shoot about the same pace as and maintain somewhat similar mechanics. Similar group size.
So there's a lot there. I saw also in a video you poured water all over your hands to demonstrate that you can have a horrible grip and you still get the same results. How important is grip in this whole equation?
So again, getting back a little bit, I said 10 to 20% is important as a mechanical. In 80% to 90%, vision is more important. Of course, I'm not saying you should have a poor mechanics and only have vision focus. Yet again, then you're losing that 10 to 20%. So if you have a good grip and consistent way of grip, it just makes it more predictable. Predictable shooting, like predictably say, hey, my sight is going to the similar pattern and my grip feels about the similar and the bend on your wrist and things like that. My stance is more predictable and repeatable and consistent. Of course, in many situations, that will help maintain the gun to behave about the same level, same behavior. Now, if you truly understand, if you truly master to simply look at to a specific spot and have the urgency, so to say, pointing your index finger, that's actually one of the things I tell people to do in my class before we start developing the gun. If you know how to move your body to exact spot you're looking at, and visual guidance is right there, urgency is right there, then body follows where you look. So even if the gun isn't ideally behaving, you still have ability to make your body follow your vision. Then the result doesn't change a whole lot. Of course, uh, 10 out of 8 times, let's say, is successful. But if you have repeatable, consistent grip and mechanics, usually it's going to be 10 out of 10. That's the 20% difference. But that's the condition. You need to master the vision focus.
Two things. First, let me just get it out there. So, what are you doing? I know we're talking vision, but you as a shooter, how is your trigger? Are you just pushing through the trigger? Are you doing prepping the trigger? Is that all out the door now? It's a completely different way of shooting.
That's a very good question. So back to my class. I teach, the first thing we do is after assessment and I see where they are at, the first thing we do is learn that vision focus. So 3 things I mentioned already. There's specific exercise I developed to learn what's that 100% vision focus. A lot of people don't understand what the 100% actually is. So we go through those exercises right away. And then second one, we just maintain vision focus and just bring the sighting system to that spot without losing the focus. Because a lot of people see a red dot or fiber optic color, they kind of lose that focus. So we do some exercises to maintain the focus. And then the next one we do is the trigger control exercise. One of the main thing in my class is to be able to set the vision focus and link all the mechanical skills to your vision. So at the end of the day, what I want you to experience is that all you need to do is follow your vision sequence and vision focus, and rest of the body follows. Like when you woke up this morning, how hard were you using your abdominal muscle to breathe? Do you know?
No,
You don't know.
didn't
You
think about
shouldn't
it.
know. Yeah, so in my class, I don't know is actually the right answer sometimes. So I am trying to develop people. So at the end, you don't even know what the body actually did in terms of tension and muscle, but all you focus is the vision. So in terms of trigger control, how we develop is first, like I mentioned, you learn the vision focus and bring your sight to that spot and learn how to keep it stable. And the second one is to pull the trigger while maintaining that stable sight. But there's a particular exercise I go through. So my way of trigger control is first gradual trigger pull in a manner of, let's say you have a 5-pound trigger. In our class, first one, there's no time limit. And I tell people, hey, at least take 2 seconds to do this. Try this. So increase the pressure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds and click at 5 pounds. But I tell people, hey, just try to do it like 2 seconds. So very gradually increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click, so that the trigger is breaking at the exact necessary amount. And then now I put some time limit. Now it's 1.5 seconds. Next one, 1 second. So I lower the part time. And at the end, I want to hear click almost immediately at the buzzer. So people learn how to pull the trigger gradually so that it breaks exact poundage of the trigger. And then eventually it speeds up to almost 0 pound to 5 pound happens almost instantly, but only you're going to 5-ish pounds. A lot of times, what people experience is some people say, hey, as long as you pull the trigger straight, it's not going to move around. I believe that. I used to do that. But here's what I experienced. Most of the times, most of the people too, when they pull the trigger at 7 pounds, let's say, but your trigger was 5 pounds, then what's happening to the leftover 2 pounds? It goes to the frame of the gun. If you're pulling the trigger straight, the sight would shake a little bit, because still there's going 2 pounds in it. If you're not pulling the trigger as straight, then the sight will go in a direction, because that leftover 2 pounds moves the gun. So even if you're pulling the trigger straight back, it still shakes. Not ideal. So it is very possible to develop that braking at exact 5 pounds, and you speed that up to the point where it's like almost slamming the trigger, but you're slamming it with just necessary amount of force, so there's no leftover. What this means is during the trigger pull, what you see is, yes, you still focus on that spot and tell your, hey, red dot, follow my vision and stay steady. And it still stays steady even though the trigger was being broken. So that's one of the first exercises I do. And during assessment, beginning of my class, it's common to see people shooting very sporadic group size. And they're shooting, they're hitting that small tape. We use small tape as a visual marker. Every bullet holes starts to go over there. So that's one of the first things to link to your vision focus, is that first you learn how to set the vision focus, bring the sight and stay steady, and then you move your trigger finger, index finger, without disturbing the sight. So the whole focus is that your vision looks at something and sight follows all the time and stay there where you look at.
How did this vision focus methodology come about? What changed in your shooting that made you think of all this?
One thing I described is, yes, I want the student to learn as fast as possible. And also, not only that, I want people to understand how to learn, especially athleticism, fast. So if they're going to jiu-jitsu, fighting, or some archery or any other sport, golf, name it, I want them to be able to learn sports and how the hand-eye coordination works as fast as possible. This didn't come up in one day, of course. It's in the process of making a bunch of drills. I made a lot of drills over time of PSTG, and one of the drills like track the A zone, confirmation drill. Actually, I was surprised how those were. A lot of people copy that and change the name and just use it. But track the A zone, confirmation drill, designated target drill, in and out. There's too many. I can't name them all. But during those drills are heavy vision focused. You need to understand what the vision is doing. For example, track the A zone, it requires a lot of shooting on the move style. And by shooting on the move, yes, definitely, for me at the time, it was challenging to keep that vision focus, because as soon as I start moving, I kind of focus on more mechanical moving part rather than what the vision should be doing. So that was one of the things that I developed to make it happen. And also one of the drills is go stop I made. And during go stop, there's a lot of movement. And during movement, once I arrive, I start tensing my body up and forget about vision focus. So that helped me to develop. So that's why it became a drill. Confirmation drill as well. You need to confirm right amount with your vision. So as I make drills and drills and drills that is vision focused, I quickly realized, yeah, the vision is the most important thing to be able to shoot with high speed and high accuracy. And also be adaptable, because in competition, you need to be able to adapt what you do. And also sometimes, of course, you get to see the stage before you shoot. But if you're shooting IPSC, which I did many times, there's no pre-walkthrough. You get only 3 minutes to assess the course, come up with the strategy, and memorize the strategy. And I used to do a lot of details in physical sense and mechanical sense, but I start realizing, hey, there's too many things I need to worry about. I need to just do one thing. So even if I get one chance of examination of the course, I'm able to come up with right away. I can execute right away, which was vision. Just get that vision focus and memorize a vision sequence where my vision has to go, where is the spots, and then I'm able to execute very, very fast. That was one thing. Also, I started realizing, hey, vision is the most important. Once you get the vision down, you're able to do so many things. And also sometimes I was making a mistake and maybe I say, oh fuck, or I make a mistake and kind of panic and lose the vision focus. So I started realizing, hey, when I make a mistake or malfunction happens, whatever unforeseen event happens, I need to focus harder with my vision. So I started learning how important the vision is. And of course, I say there's a spiritual intervention, divine intervention. Every drill I made was during prayer, so I can say that. Yeah.
That's great. Uh,
Mhm.
Speaking of vision, you know, starting with iron sights, most iron sight shoes will tell you got to focus hard on that front sight. Focus on that front sight. That's what was taught for so many years. Uh, this vision focus works with both red dots and iron sights, correct?
Absolutely. But one thing
So,
you need to learn if you are so used to front sight focus and seeing the front sight and rear sight sharp, you just gotta focus. You just gotta train shooting with blur front sight and blur rear sight and still aligning with them. If you train that enough, you start to understand, even if it's a blur front sight, you get to know exactly out of that blur, you got to know exactly where the center is in that blur. And you actually train that way, you actually learn exactly where the center of the blur is. And you get to align it, even the vision is focused on the target.
you prefer red dots over irons?
That's a difficult question. I actually enjoy more with iron sight.
Interesting.
Yes, but red dot is where the current market is at.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So during pandemic, I had some time, some break time and not many competitions. So I was going easy. So during the time, I shot a couple limited match with the iron sights, and actually shot with Ben. Ben's one of the last USPSA match, and he was happy to see me shooting irons. I think I was shooting actually better than the red dot, to be honest, in the faster shooting close-up targets.
That is interesting. I know everyone loves red dots these days. I still like iron sights.
Mhm.
Um, so for practice, I mean, what is a practice schedule for you like?
Like a schedule wise, it depends on the season and how much teaching I have. If I, let's say, a week at home, what it looks like right now this year is going by 2+1 system where 2 days training, 1 day off, 2 days training, 1 day off. Used to be 3+1 when I was younger, and I start feeling my recovery rate is slower and my intensity ramped up actually. Not intensity of hours. During training, I'm trying to focus harder and harder and harder. So the intensity of my training is much higher. So when I was trying to do 3+1, I needed more rest. So now I'm doing 2+1. One thing I tell in my class oftentimes is, of course, because classes, usually group class, last 2 days. And during the time, I warn people, hey, no matter how buff you are, how muscly you are, you're going to go through fatigue. Everybody over here is going through the fatigue. I can guarantee you. So they actually go through the mental fatigue and visual fatigue. So once, like, it usually only takes about 4 hours. First 4 hours, people like, oh wow, my vision's getting blurred, I'm getting tired and whatnot. I'm mentally exhausted. And that's when I give this analogy. Hey, when you buy a fresh toothpaste, you squeeze a little bit, the toothpaste comes out very well. But once you use most of it, you got to squeeze harder and harder. You got to squeeze that tube so hard to get a little out of it. Vision focus is similar to that. When you are fresh, when you come to the range, yes, you might have better vision focus. You have more energy. But as you focus more and more, you drain that energy. So once you feel tired, and even if it's blurred, you got to squeeze harder to focus harder and maintain the level of focus. It's a very important concept to learn. A lot of people actually, in my opinion, who is a military law enforcement, usually does that better because they train going through fatigue. But some people may not train like that. So if somebody comes to my class and they're not really used to going through fatigue and pushing through fatigue, not just surviving fatigue, actually pushing through the fatigue without much of a performance degradation, that's good place. Because competition, it happens a couple days, and usually you're out there in the sun many hours. So some shooters shoot better in the first half, and second half they start to degrade. And that's where you need to learn how to push through to fatigue and maintain your vision focus level throughout the day. Once you learn that, it's actually a push thing, feel thing. Once you learn how to go through the fatigue, the following sessions, following trainings, following competitions gets much easier.
So when is the book coming out on vision focus?
Yes, many people has asked me. So I'm dyslexic. So I tried writing down, but my dyslexia wasn't cooperating. Some people actually told me about like voice recording and they type it for me kind of thing. But still, I need to be able to check my work. So maybe down the line, maybe I'll hire somebody to edit it properly and yeah, write the book.
I think it's good. I think we need some good shooting books. I mean, obviously Ben has written tons of good shooting books, but these are some deep concepts that are very interesting. And thank you, first of all, for sharing it. We have some questions if you have some time to answer. Would that
Yep.
be okay?
Mhm.
Let's see. So someone wants to know some tips on how not to crack under pressure while shooting against top competitors.
The answer was already mentioned. Focus harder.
Okay.
Vision focus.
Vision focus.
Yes.
All right.
And focus harder is the key.
So you know how they talk about when you're shooting,
Mhm.
you shouldn't be thinking about too many things because your conscious mind can only focus on like one thing at a time. So
Yes.
you would stress that focus harder on your vision, and then you're not going to worry about what you're doing against other people.
Yep. That's a good way to do. Of course, depends on your goal. They can change a little bit, but that should not happen while shooting. If you need to change your thinking, it happens before shooting, analyzing people's score and what the next stage is, and analyzing the stage where I can either maintain the score or gain more score kind of thing happens before. As you are shooting, you just focus on the vision. Of
Okay.
course, some people say, hey, what if I do this and I have a contingency program, so I might have to like not exactly follow the vision sequence? Yes, that's okay, but you still vision focus. So what it looks like if I know somebody has a proper vision focus or not is, let's just say this guy had a malfunction or forgot a sequence. It could be anything. If that guy start talking to himself, basically diverting his energy to verbal energy, like in the brain, or like they just kind of look around casually, well, what do I do? There's no vision focus. When there's stuff like that happens, because there's a contingency program and things kind of misaligned to your plane and sequence, then what you should be seeing is snapping that head around to assess as quick as possible and finding the proper spot where you have to shoot. So basically saying the first time I've ever experienced the acquisition speed wise, so in vision focus, the first thing is acquisition speed. The first time I ever experienced trying to acquire as fast as humanly possible speed was during the army. There was big boom, big explosion, and I snapped my head towards the direction. It was actually right behind me, so I snapped my head behind me, and I couldn't believe how fast I can snap my neck or rotate my neck to get that vision to opposite direction, behind direction. And I saw like the background shifting so much faster and then getting my vision towards that boom. And that's how fast people actually have. And a lot of people don't do that during shooting, especially when their shoulders really tight and locked up. If you shrug up your shoulder, it not only tenses up your shoulder, it tenses up your traps. And if your trap's so locked up, it locks up the neck. You don't turn your neck at all, especially if you look at shooters with shrug up shoulders in wider transition, they can see the head and the gun is in the same direction and just turn the whole body without actually moving the head itself. Our head has different maximum speed compared to how fast we can move the gun. We have to individualize those parts and move at its own maximum speeds.
Okay, another question here. Have you noticed any age demographic change since you started teaching, or is it staying about the same?
If I guess, I would say definitely lowered, more younger shooters, for sure, getting into the either sport or shooting related things. So yeah, definitely is lower in my opinion.
Okay, how much dry fire per week do cops need to get better? And what are some of the live fire drills do you recommend for uniform police officers?
Yes, that's a very good question. So in terms of dry fire, it can vary based on how much live fire you do, and also in terms of skill where you are at the moment. So in terms of most people, in my opinion, they need to do non-dry fire drills, meaning you need to do vision exercises first to actually master what the vision focus is. So one of the exercise in my class, what I make people do is I pick spots. Like, hey, that's the spot you need to look, that's the spot you need to look, and that's the spot you need to look. Usually different distances, maybe 5, 10, 15. And I give them buzzer. As soon as you hear the buzzer, snap your vision, find that spot, and then wait for the next buzzer. So you can actually do that exercise while driving too. I used to do that while driving a lot. At a red signal, I pick objects around me and spot, spot, spot as fast as possible. The best one I found for myself was during fatigue, at a heart rate at least above 130. So when we go to the gym, either doing a cardio, during cardio, or in between you do heavy lifting, your heart rate is up. Then at the gym, pick a couple spots around you and snap your vision. Especially when the heart rate goes up high, vision gets blurred because how the brain pumping works. Even though your vision is blurred, try to squeeze harder and harder. Very important to understand. Vision focus is not about clarity. Imagine if you're watching a 4K resolution YouTube video versus 400 pixels. 400 pixels will be more blocky look and not as clear and not as the clarity is bad. But if you look at 4K, the clarity is great. But can we pick a spot inside that 4K versus inside the blocky 400 pixels? The clarity doesn't matter in terms of putting a pinpoint a spot and putting urgency to that exact spot. It's not about clarity. Fortunately and unfortunately, I was born with very bad eyesight, so my vision cannot see 15 yards plus targets clear. They're blur, but I'm still able to zoom into a specific spot. Although it's not clear, I am picking that small spot and putting urgency to that spot. So basic exercise like that is very important, not only for shooting, any sport you do. And in terms of dry fire, I typically say, if you are generically saying D class to B class in USPSA, if you shoot, I would say, hey, usually for you, I would say 30 minutes, fantastic, if you can. If not, 15 minutes. But now say, hey, I'm a B class, A class, and I want to get master and grandmaster. In that case, they're very serious. So even if you're a D class, C class, very beginner shooter, if you desire to be grandmaster and master, I say 1 hour minimum is how I recommend. But of course, hey, I want to just be a grandmaster. Like I want to get that title. I don't want to shoot a match and finish as a grandmaster. I don't care. I just want the title. If that's the case, 30 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes. If you want to be good, but not like I'm not curious about being like top grandmaster, maybe very good master or beginner grandmaster. If that's the case, yeah, 30 to 45 minutes is how I recommend. But if you want to be, hey, I want to win nationals. I want to be top shooter. I want to finish nationals at top 10, top 20, maybe even top 30. Then in that case, 2 sessions a day of dry fire, well, an hour and a half minimum. So it could be 45 minutes morning, 45 in the evening. It could be like that. Or I don't recommend any dry fire that's more than an hour, because live fire is okay to do 2 straight hours because there's taping, reloading. There's actually some break in between. If you are doing 1 hour session dry fire, if you 100% vision focus during the whole time, where there's no pasting, no reloading, it's go, 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 immediately one another. Then after an hour, if you're not smoked, if you're not fatigued to the level that your toothpaste doesn't squeeze out anything else, you're doing the right thing. But after an hour, you feel like, oh, Kim, I think I can go another hour. Like, well, then I don't think you're really vision focused as much. Yes.
And I would like to say to that guy, get into USPSA or IDPA or some sort of competition. That is going to help your skill set under stress, because that's the biggest thing that I always saw with police officers is having an issue of dealing with their firearm under stress, understanding, how to diagnose. They'll be shooting just a stage, a drill, and they go to slide lock. They don't even realize they're at slide lock. So having that awareness comes from being in competition and or even taking classes, doing the dry fire, being able to get the gun out of your retention holster, being able to reload from a lot of police officers have snaps on their magazines to keep them from flying out. Well, you need to be able to pop that snap and still do a quick reload. So those are things that I would recommend. Another question for you, Hwansik. For a guy who's looking to get into USPSA, what would be some good drills to start with?
Uh, Again, the drills I made.
I would say sign up for PSTG
STG.
first. I would say that'd
Yes,
be a
that's a
good
very good
starting
idea
place.
because we have all the drills over there. The thing is, in my opinion, taking a class who actually understand vision focus, either me, Ben, and probably I hope there's some others out there too. Um, that's a very good start to actually don't waste your time doing something that wouldn't help you. That's one thing. In terms of drill, uh, I would say one of the most important drill is to be able to, yes, break the trigger without disturbing sight. It is not, here's a very important thing. Drill is just a tool. The drill itself is not important. What you focus during the drill is the importance. So even if you're shooting bill drill, doubles drill, 4 aces, any recoil challenging drills, let's say, one is not better than the other. It's how you focus during that drill is what makes it more important. So during the time, it is more important that your learning ability is there. On PSTG, one of the video I posted is inductive method and deductive method of training. That's one thing I learned actually in Bible school. So basically what inductive method of training is, you start something very small, one single thing. For example, just like I described, hey, you pick 3 spots and you look. Once you do that, just bring that sight to that. Hey, that's a spot, red dot, that spot, red dot, that spot, red dot. And then add trigger pull. So you're adding one simple thing at a time to increase the difficulty as you go, but it helps you to set one thing in the beginning to maintain the same concept or same improvement all the way throughout more difficulty. Deductive method of training is the opposite. You start something very complex like a stage, full stage, maybe track the A zone. There's multiple components in the stage or in the drill. Track the A zone, you have to move, you have to shoot, you have to target transition. You analyze one thing that goes wrong. Hey, my first shot after target transition, I'm keep missing the target. In that case, Just shoot in the middle, no movement. Just transition, transition, transition. Oh, I am not confirming as much. Like I'm just shooting bullets even before I confirm the red dot color of the red dot. Then just do one shot each or go to confirmation drill that you're breaking it down. So now already talked about two drills over here. Track the A zone and yeah, confirmation drill. It's a very fantastic way to start. Confirmation drill is very important to be able to understand how much confirmation on the site or how much confirmation kinesthetically produce how much accuracy. So confirmation drill, there's confirmation 1, 2, 3. And confirmation 1 is almost like a point shoot. As soon as a gun is meeting that eye line up to the gun and the target, you break it immediately, even before your brain registers the sight system. Because once you see that red dot and then pulling the trigger, it takes 0.2 seconds response time. So basically, it's almost like point shoot. And then confirmation 2 is as soon as you see the color, it registered to your brain, hey, I saw the red dot, immediately you fire. So your almost last thing you see is a streak of red dot coming in. And then as soon as there's that streak red dot coming in, you break it right away. So there is now 0.2 seconds response time. And the confirmation 3 is as soon as you see the color of the sight, or it could be iron sight, blurred iron sight, stop, stable, on this spot you look at, boom. So each different amount of confirmation has different times, of course. Confirmation 1, 2, 3, it gets slower and slower, slower. But usually accuracy-wise, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So confirmation 3, stable sight on the exact spot. Usually, yes, tighter group. You point shoot, less tight group, bigger group, but faster. So you kind of understand what's the accuracy behind and speed behind on confirmation, each confirmation. And by understanding that, you have better understanding of if there's like a no-shoot target or hostage situation, the target dimensionally is much smaller and the risk goes high, then yes, you got to confirm more. If there's no hostage situation, no-shoot, target's closer up, then you lower the confirmation. And through designated target drill, one of the drill I made, it's a lot of target transition during the drill. You can enforce amount of confirmation to a certain target distance or target difficulty. So you can ingrain. Designated target drill is a fantastic dry fire drill.
One last question.
Mhm.
This is actually an interesting question. How do you deal with lead exposure? What precautions do you take, especially shooting in indoor ranges?
Yes, my lead level has gone up since I started shooting for sure. So I try to drop some bad habits. So before I used to, I drop my cigar on the ground and just smoke it back. And now, like, I make sure it doesn't drop, but I don't smoke it again. And drinking and eating, very included. So if it's eating, like a protein bar or something, then I go a little away from the shooting line, so there's no dust collecting onto the protein bar, and I make sure I am keeping the rep and my hands on the rep kind of thing. So eating, drinking really affects your lead level. In terms of indoors, one thing is, yes, you can try to use a projectile that produces less smoke. That's one thing. So like jacketed hollow points, some coated bullets, things like that. And in terms of, I heard some countries use a mask, and I don't do that when I shoot indoor match, but that's something you could consider it. For me, in my opinion, a lot of the level goes up when I reload, because when I reload, the primer cap comes out, lead kind of dusts, clouds up. So now I have two air filters around the reloading press. I think that helped me, and I started using gloves for that.
Yeah, buy some de-leading wipes, or be sure and
Yes.
wash your hands. Don't bring. I guess if you walk around on the range, maybe take those shoes off before you walk into the house. Stuff like that. But thank you very much for. I mean, this has been a fascinating lecture from the professor on vision focus. Great stuff and super interesting stuff. I can't wait to actually see you in person at some point to really break it down, to experience it, like you said. Um,
Mhm.
You're teaching, obviously, go to your website. Do you have a calendar on your website where you share your classes?
Yep, hkimshooting.com.
I'll link that below. You can follow Hwansik on the gram and other social media, and get out to a match. You'll see him shoot. It's quite a treat. But again, thank you everyone for coming by tonight, and thank you Hwansik for coming on the show.
Thank you, everyone.